Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Freedom Factor. So, today I wanted to address some things because, well, it's back in the news again. Apparently, people are just confused, and I'm of the mentality, and I posted this on Twitter the other day. The rampant misuse of the term fascist tells me that the majority of people who use it don't actually know what it is. So we're going to explore that today. Really it's kind of confusing to me how people can misrepresent a word in use of it as like a pejorative where they're like, I'm going to disparage Trump because I disagree with him. So I'm going to resort to basically calling him something he's not. It's kind of akin to like so full disclosure, I'm not trying to defend Donald Trump here. I like some of what he does, but I also have some critiques of what he's doing. Namely the recent kind of dust up between Donald Trump and Thomas Massey over the budget and over government spending, where Trump has gone off the rails and kind of strayed from his original message. It's against the whole idea of Doge to say, well, we need to pass this government spending bill that'll keep us going until September. And it's like, no, that's not what Doge was doing. Doge was cutting that. Doge was looking at ways that we could. So why are we kicking the can down the road some more? And also on top of that, we're doing this stupid bullshit where they're wanting to hold off, and Trump's like, well, we need to primary Massey because he's not. No, Massey's the only person besides Rand Paul who's been fucking consistent. Like, do these people not understand? Like, just Trump is a moron on this, but he's not a fascist. So let's dive into that together, shall we? Let's look at what actually the big picture is. Now, to kind of preface this, we need to define our terms. And so we'll do the fascist part first, and then I'll get into the other part, the Newtsy part, because apparently there's been a lot of that, and there's some news stuff I want to cover with that. So first off, what is fascism? Now, I can give you the textbook definition, which is basically defined as a political philosophy or a regime that places national interest and often race above the individual and operates on a centralized autocratic government ruled by a dictatorial leader that exercises extreme economic and social control through the forcible suppression of opposition. Now, that's a lot of words. That is a conglomeration of several dictionary definitions, and I piecemealed it together to let you know where I got that definition from. It is a all-encompassing definition. It's not a singular sourced definition, because I like to, but it doesn't really explain all the intricacies. Like fascism is an extreme nationalistic and militaristic ideology in stark contrast to a liberal democracy or republic like that of the United States, or at least what we were founded upon. And it operates on a strict authoritarian rule where voices of opposition are suppressed, often in the form of the destruction of free speech and the elimination of the free press. Now, that being said, there are plenty of really good examples of fascism. Franco in Spain, obviously where the term came from, Mussolini in Italy, and those are some good, I guess you could say, real world examples of fascism. However, when you try to apply the kind of over-encompassing portions of fascism to what is going on today in American politics, I guess, you get into some some kind of interesting dynamics. So we can kind of compare and contrast what exactly is going on, like what fascism is and how it relates to the Trump administration. And you can see there are a couple similarities. It's like America First. People could say that's a very fascist kind of thing. Except, no. I mean, like, in reality, putting your country first is not fascist. That is just being a good leader. Like, I mean, being a good father would be putting my family first above my, my career or my friends or my circle of acquaintances or whatever. That is what a father does. That is what a mother does. That is what what adults do, is they put their household before. Like, I'm not gonna go and sell all my property to help my neighbor. Like, that doesn't make sense. So America First, it's kind of a misnomer. It's a stupid way of saying, hey, this is what, fascism, this is fascist, or Trump is being fascist because he wants to put the needs of American citizens before the needs of immigrants or foreigners or other countries. No, that is not fascism. That is just being a good leader. Does he sometimes go a little out of control? Yes. Imperialism is a big facet of fascism. The whole annexing Canada and Greenland, that is dumb. And I do not agree with Trump trying to pull that crap. That is ridiculous and kind of stupid. However, it's not exactly fascism. Fascism also kind of puts it puts the national interest above the individual interest, and where fascism kind of collides with this socialist ideology. That's why Nazi socialism is also kind of parallel to fascism, because the Nazis placed national interest and often racial interest above individual interest. Like, that's kind of socialism. Socialism and fascism kind of go hand in hand, whereas socialism and fascism do not go hand in hand with a kind of a liberal republic like what America was founded upon, where the rights and needs of the individual are placed higher than the tyranny of the majority, which is what democracy is. A pure democracy is the tyranny of a majority, which we don't want in this country. At least most of us shouldn't want that in this country, because like everybody's heard the very contrived and overused kind of, it's almost to the point of a cliche nowadays, where democracy is three wolves and one sheep voting on what to have for dinner. But really, in reality, it is true, though. A pure democracy would basically mean, for instance, you have a car. Well, we all voted. We all got together and voted. And you're allowed to vote too, but we all got together and voted. We voted out. We voted over you. That your car, you don't need your car. Someone less fortunate needs your car. So we voted, and now your car is their car. You have to give them your car. That's a pure democracy. Or even more kind of grounded in reality is a pure democracy would be like, your business is no longer your business. Your business is now the state's business. We have decided collectively that the state is now going to take over your business and run it because they can run it better than you. Wait a minute. That sounds familiar. Oh, yeah, that's right, because that's what the Nazis did. And that's not what Trump is doing. So to say from the kind of national interest over individual aspect, that is absolutely not what Trump is doing. And it's awful weird that they're cutting government spending and government handouts to other people, and that's somehow consolidating power? No, like cutting federal power is not fascist. That's the exact opposite of fascism. And so, kind of the centralized autocratic government, Trump's not doing anything. He's not proposing we disband Congress, which is a big part of fascism. Yes, he is, he's thumbing his nose at a lot of court decisions lately, which, I mean, I get. I understand, because in this country, and I could go on this topic for hours, but the whole court thing, we've allowed in this country courts to have way too much power, and courts can't legislate. So the courts basically blocking actions that the executive branch is entitled to is an example of the imbalance of powers, where there's supposed to be, the equal but separate powers of government, the three branches. I mean, really, like, this is civics 101. We should have three equal but separate powers, and they should keep each other in check. And the courts overreaching their purview to limit the powers of the executive branch that are delegated to the executive branch is, in fact, going against that ideal. So, in some cases, yes, courts do overstretch their bounds and they tend to go beyond what they're supposed to be doing. Not every time. Don't misconstrue me as saying that, oh, Trump can just thumb his nose at the courts anytime they make a ruling. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when they're trying to limit the powers that are already given to the executive, that are being used properly, they can't do that. So some rulings are actually pretty good. They should hamstring the president from overstretching his power beyond the scope of what it should be. And that right there, that's not the kind of fighting with the court that's not in itself fascist. And he's not a dictator. I know people will say, well, he said he was going to be a dictator on day one. You're taking out of context what he actually said. He said that he'll act like a dictator on day one and then go back to being normal power just to get what he needs done to kind of correct the ship. That's what he was talking about. And yes, Trump is an idiot and talks very bombastically and he talks very hyperbolically a lot. That's just how he is. You have to get used to that. And the fact that people still can't recognize that just proves that they are dumb. So really, what is Trump doing from an economic perspective that would be fascist? Nothing. He is not calling for the government to take over the economy. In fact, he's looking at trying to cut taxes, which is clearly not the work of fascism. Fascism would be for an increase in taxes and an increase in government power and an increase of government's hold on the economy. And Trump is trying to eliminate a lot of regulation and red tape and all of that. I've heard talk that there's some inner workings going on behind the scenes of trying to reduce the regulations so that we can have more expansion on nuclear power, which I think would be great. And he's wanting to get rid of all these subsidies on green energy because a lot of times green energy turns out is, in some cases, is a scam. Wind power, for instance, is not a viable alternative energy source to put all your eggs in that one basket. And the destruction of the oil and gas industry works counter to that. Further, then there's the social control and suppression of opposition. Last time I checked, MSNBC fired Joy Reid. Donald Trump didn't do that. Fox News fired Tucker Carlson. Trump didn't do that. Trump is not trying to get rid of the media. Trump is not trying to stop people from protesting. I get where people say it's kind of fascistic to deport people on student visas who protest Israel. I don't agree with that. I think that's bold-faced stupidity. People, even if you are here on a student visa, you should still always have the right to protest. If you have a problem with the way the host government is doing things, you should be able to voice that, even as a foreign national who is here on a student visa or here on a visa of any kind. However, rioting, I can see that if you engage in violent protestation that is not protesting, that's we have a right to redress our grievances, not a right to throw rocks at our government. That right there, that's not fascism. If you engage in violence and you're here on a student visa, yeah, I have no problems with you being deported. None whatsoever. And some could see the protests, and I won't get into the Israel-Palestine conflict because that's a ball of wax for another time. We can have that conversation at another time. And if you want to see that, please, comment or whatever, or, respond on Twitter, where I post these videos. So that's one thing we could get into another time. But, wherever you land on the Israel-Palestine thing, if you are calling for genocide on either side, whether you're pro-Israel and you think that Palestinians need to be wiped off the face of the earth, which that's pretty disgusting, or if you're pro-Palestine and you think that the Israelis need to be wiped off the face of the earth, also disgusting, because genocide is bad no matter which side is committing it or the victim thereof. So, and which, you can agree or disagree with whatever aspect of the Israel-Palestine conflict you want, but when people say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that is essentially calling for genocide, because that is what Hamas and the anti-Israeli forces over there have said, is from the river to the sea means they will cleanse from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea all the Jews out of the area. That is, if not genocide, that is absolutely calling for ethnic cleansing. And I don't think either side needs to be calling for ethnic cleansing, especially not Donald Trump. When he says shit like, that was the worst ever, when he said we were going to take over Gaza, clean it out, and then rebuild it and make it better, or whatever the hell. No, that is literally ethnic cleansing, and that is, we've backed wars for that. That, in fact, a little history lesson for you. The first time NATO actually, as an organization, went to war was in Bosnia over ethnic cleansing. So I don't know how people can support that and then turn around, and say, well, no, genocide is bad. No, all of it is bad. And ethnic cleansing is bad. Genocide is bad. We should never, ever, ever want that. We should want peace. We should want no more wars. And that's where I think, yes, Trump has been ramping up operations towards the Houthis and doing all this stuff that is the whole thing in Yemen is all very suspicious, because it's backing basically Saudi Arabia. Because Saudi Arabia is kind of fighting with Yemen on the whole Houthi thing. But that, again, that's another conversation for another time. But things like that is, circling back, that is not fascism. Now, there are some similarities with Trump and fascism, like yes, he wants a strong military, but that's not really fascism. Sort of, kind of, but not really. Valuing the military and having a strong military is not, it is and it isn't. Having a strong military is just looking out for your national defense. When there's enemies all over, you kind of need to defend yourself. And I get that. But that's not fascism. So, let's look at, all of this stuff is like basically saying Trump is a fascist is basically proving that you don't know what fascism is. There may be little bits. If it was a Venn diagram of Trump and fascism, there's like a sliver of overlap. But that could be true of almost anybody. I mean, let's look at Barack Obama. The forcible suppression of opposition, the destruction of free speech. When they said, when basically they passed the National Defense Authorization Act, and forgive me, I don't remember exactly which year. There was a provision put in that Obama signed into law that basically restricted the distance one could protest from a president. Basically, it says like you cannot protest in an area that's within, like whatever. I think it's like 500 yards of where the president is, and so that is kind of calling for suppression of free speech. That is, that's kind of part of the bedrock founding of the First Amendment, is being able to redress grievances with your government. And the president is the figurehead of that government. So not being allowed to protest near him kind of flies in the face of First Amendment rights. Donald Trump's not doing that. Donald Trump is not trying to silence people. Donald Trump is not trying to do, and like Germany, for instance, recently they said that you can be arrested for sharing offensive opinions online, and that because it's online, it's worse than in person, because in person you basically you say it and it's gone, but online is forever, or something to that effect. That's what some German said. Or like England, where England says that if you post offensive content, that is a violation of the law and you can be thrown in jail. Or Canada, if you protest, if you're a truck driver and you protest and you get arrested, or all this stuff, that is more fascist than what Trump is doing. Trump is not telling people they can't say what they want. Trump is not going out and silencing voices of opposition, and that is exactly what fascism does. That's what Hitler did. Hitler made it so you couldn't criticize the government. So like this whole thing where they're saying that Trump is a fascist or Trump is a Nazi. No, and while we're on the subject, I want to clear something up, because people think that Nazism is kind of comparable to republicanism in America, which they're like polar opposites, because Nazism, it's in the title. Nazi, like the Nazi Party was called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Key word there, operative word being socialist. And people say, well, that wasn't actual socialism. Just like North Korea calls itself the Democratic Republic of Korea. Well, that's their misuse of the word. Does not mean that Germany's calling themselves they're calling themselves socialist is also them misusing. You're comparing apples to hand grenades. This doesn't work. No, Germany absolutely was a socialist country under the rule of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. 100% was socialist. And it was different from Soviet socialism in the fact that German Nazi socialism had the racial aspect to it. That's where it differed. That's where it kind of bridged the gap between socialism and fascism, where it was this amalgamation between fascism and socialism, where they had the racial aspect, because the Soviet Union didn't really have the racial aspect, whereas Germany did. Absolutely, like if you weren't white Protestant, you could just you were in trouble in Germany. However, that being said, they also had some ultranationalistic stuff. Where is the ultranationalistic with American republicanism? And full disclosure, I'm not a Republican, obviously, but like, they're not. Republicans are not Nazis. Republicans are not fascists. They're not ultranationalists. I mean, yes, there's this thin line between good nationalism and bad nationalism. Good nationalism is where you put your nation first in most areas, but still respect the individuals. That's good nationalism. Bad nationalism would be like you put the nation above all else. Everything. Which is why people say like Christian nationalism is bad. I don't even know what that is. Because technically Christian nationalism would mean that you put the nation first above everything else except God. Which I can get into a talk on that for hours. I won't. But yes, like the whole idea of Trump being a socialist or whatever, or not socialist, a fascist or whatever, is just ridiculous, and people need to stop doing that. Now, moving on from there, there's been a lot of calls lately against Elon Musk. People have been calling Elon Musk a Nazi, which I think is hilarious, because it's absolutely not true. And this whole wave recently, if you haven't been paying attention or if you've been living under a rock, Teslas are being vandalized. Tesla dealerships are being vandalized. And I feel like people don't realize that, newsflash, Elon Musk does not own the Tesla dealerships, most of them. Most of those are private entities. It's kind of like a franchise. You can have like a Chevy dealership or a Mercedes dealership. Mercedes-Benz does not own the dealership. You're under contract, but it's not ownership. So by vandalizing and burning down Tesla dealerships, you're absolutely not hurting Elon Musk in any way. And whatever message you're sending gets lost in the chaos. So that's ridiculous and needs to stop. And then people vandalizing and destroying Teslas hurts Elon zero amount. You're actually attacking other people's property. People who may not even agree politically with Elon Musk. I know several Tesla owners who do not agree politically with Elon Musk. They don't like Donald Trump, but they drive Teslas. And it's like, well, you're supporting Elon's company. Okay, so what? I know people who use Starlink that are liberals because it's the only good internet they can get where they live. Like, it's ridiculous and it's stupid. And the fact that people are destroying other people's property, it's kind of like if I were to walk up to you and I were to punch you in the face and say, oh, no, I'm not against you. I'm against this other person. What does that prove? Nothing. It is stupid. You're destroying people's property that harms Elon in no way, shape, or form, and instead harms that person. And people like that road rage video where the guy in the Subaru cut in front of this lady and says, you need to sell your car. I'm sorry, if you follow me and then you cut around me and stop in front of me and get out of your car, I'm going to assume that you are not there to tell me, hey, I've got a taillight out or something. I'm assuming there's a threat, and I'm going to act accordingly to the threat. I'm going to respond in kind to the threat. Most times, if there's a threat and I'm in my vehicle, I'm in a multi-thousand-pound car, and you're in front of me, and you get out of the car, and I think you're going to hurt me, I'm hitting the gas. But like this idea that like to attack people for owning and driving Teslas is somehow an own on Elon Musk is probably the dumbest thing of 2025 so far. Among them. It is among the dumbest things of 2025 so far. So there's that. So this whole like calling Trump and Elon Nazi, fascist, what have you, is just the rantings of people who are intellectually incapable of grasping the concept of words. Like you're misusing the word, which is not surprising because the left is very good at this. Misusing words like racist is thrown around way too casually and without any justification, or homophobic, or transphobic, or bigoted, or sexist, or any number of these buzzwords that people on the left constantly use to disparage people whom they disagree with. Like, is it are you really like really?
Really?
I don't know why people have to do this. It's absurd, to be perfectly honest. I guess to kind of wrap this up, I like the just the rampant misuse of words is really telling on the intellectual abilities of a lot of people, and the fact that I really dismiss. I hate to say it, and this is not like an ad hominem type of attack, but I really dismiss people as stupid if they say anything like Trump is fascist or Nazi or whatever, and making that comparison just leads me to believe that you have no idea what you're talking about.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
It's just absurd. So anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you like the video, share, subscribe. You know, I do this from time to time. I don't really have a set schedule. I would like to get a set schedule, but just some stuff that's been on my mind lately with the whole political discourse in this country that's been really kind of sad to see. Really is. I really wish people could actually have a meaningful conversation about, like, actually detail what you disagree with instead of just resorting to this ridiculous and stupid and baseless accusations that Trump is a Nazi, or Elon's a Nazi, or Trump is fascist. Like, seriously, have some respect for yourself and show some like intellectual fortitude in saying that, like, no, like, instead of throwing out Trump is just a fascist, you could come back and say, I really disagree with this policy. I think this is very bad. I would be willing to have that conversation with somebody. But when you jump in and say that, all this baseless, without justification and really without much context of an explanation, saying that so-and-so is a fascist, just leads me to believe that, like, you don't know what you're talking about, and it's really sad. So, yeah, let's try and do better, shall we? Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it, and you all have a good one. I'll catch you on the next one.